Our next speaker is Graham Hill. He's the founder of treehugger.com, a massive website dedicated to environmentalism and the green future. He's also VP Interactive at Discovery's Planet Green. He is a self-described minimalist, which talks about his life living with less, but giving him more happiness at lifeedited.com. Please welcome Graham Hill.
Thanks. Everything works. Hey, gang. So I'm going to talk for about 18 minutes, mostly about my Life Edited project, but then I'm also applying some of this to your sort of house and home, but also to business and personally. Is the sound okay? Not? Okay, cool. So I'm a web guy. I built a web firm in Seattle, one of the early ones, in 1995. Built it to 60 people and sold it to a New York firm. I'm also a designer. I studied architecture and product design. I'm Canadian, so both up here. And this ceramic cup of mine sells about $35,000 a year at the MoMA and 200 other stores. I'm also an environmentalist. I built a website called Treehugger that gets about 5 million uniques a month and is one of the top 2 or 3 most trafficked green sites. I built that in 2004 and sold that to Discovery in 2007. So back in the 50s, the average house size was about 1,000 square feet. Nowadays, it's about 2,500. At the same time, our families have shrunk in size. So we have about 3 times the amount of space we used to. Triple. So that's a lot more than we used to. So you'd think that with all that extra space, triple, that we'd have plenty of room for all of our stuff, right? Just sort of follows. Not so much. So most of us have some version of this. It might be a few boxes. Often we've moved with them multiple times. If pressed, we may not be entirely sure as to their contents, but what we do know is that we can't get rid of them. So we become so good at consuming that despite having all this extra space, there's a personal storage industry that does revenues of $22 billion, 2.2 billion square feet. So we have all this space, and we still need more space off-site to store our stuff. So where has this gotten us in the last 50 years or so? Well, we've got out-of-control credit card debt, housing debt. We're using about 4 times the energy that we used to, and because most of our energy sources are dirty, that means our footprints are way, way higher. And it would all at least have some sense if we were happier with all this space and all this stuff, but it turns out that happiness levels have basically flatlined since the 50s. So that doesn't seem to be working. So a few years ago, I started thinking about how we might change that. And I'm here to suggest that there's a better way, and that if we apply in a conscious way, smart design, smart technology, that we can actually make less equal more. The new equation I'd like to propose is less stuff and less space is going to equal a smaller footprint. Owning less stuff, less space to heat and cool and light and maintain makes for a smaller footprint. It's a great way to actually save you some money. Less stuff and less space is obviously going to generally be cheaper. And I think almost most importantly, doing this, living this lifestyle in a conscious manner may give you a little more peace, a little more time, a little more ease, and therefore a little more happiness. So I'm here to propose that editing is the skill of this century. And I started Life Edited with a project, which basically I bought a tiny apartment, my personal apartment in New York, 400 square feet. And I put together a really demanding brief. So I wanted to get a lot out of this tiny space. I basically wanted the functionality of a space 2 or 3 times the size in this smaller space. By doing that, at 1,000 or 1,500 square foot in New York City, I'm going to save myself a ton of money and I'm going to reduce my footprint. So the brief was I wanted room for a couple to live. I wanted to be able to work at home. I wanted decent storage for my kite surfing equipment, and etc. I also wanted to be able to have guests come over in a civil manner. And I wanted in a 400 square foot space to be able to have a really great sit-down dinner for 10. So a really aggressive brief. I worked with Javoto.com, this German site, to crowdsource the design. So I raised 80 grand in prize money from Cisco and Autodesk and the like. And then I put this brief online, and I got over 300 entries from all around the world. Some really great work, and I got my own little jewel box. And so I'm going to walk you through it. It was won by a couple of Romanian architecture students, which is great. And actually, they're just visiting right now for the first time out of Europe, period. So we got a ton out of this. This is a bird's eye view. We got a ton out of the space by filling entire walls with storage, sort of floor to ceiling, wall to wall. We have this amazing transforming furniture that you'll see. Small space enabling housewares and a moving wall. So here's the main space. And so the gist of the project is get a lot out of this one main space. And so in the corner is a stand-up or sit-down, if you wish, a little home office tucked away there. This is the kitchen view. We built the counter around this special table called the Goliath by Resource Furniture. And when you pull that out, it expands to 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 or, I'm not counting very well, 10 seats. So this is a sit-down dinner for 10 in the apartment. These are all computer renderings, by the way. And then here's the moving wall. So it comes out like that. And Resource Furniture bunk beds fold down for your guests. And a little curtain comes out of the pocket of the wall to give a little privacy. Master bed comes down, literally 2 fingers over the couch. A little screen for the projector, and curtain as well for privacy. This is the bathroom, separated into 3 different functions to reduce traffic. And I made the WC room quite nice, covered in wood, and it's a sort of double door system, so it makes it very private. Point being that living in a small space, you may want to get away to make a private phone call and bitch about your significant other, or meditate, or what have you. And so we have a little seat that folds down over the toilet to make this cool little room. Everyone always loves the toilet. Here's just another view of the kitchen. So the New York Times covered it about 2 months ago now, and they called it the apartment of the future. Got 2 whole cover of the home section and 2 big pages, so we were very happy about that. Here are a couple of the actual photos of the space. On the left is the entry. On the right, kitchen. There's a magnetic wall for spices and that sort of stuff. On the left, kitchen again from the side. Here on the right, you can see the stacking chairs and the leaves for that table. Left is the couch and the bed that comes out, and there's the bed on the right out, which has this really cool shelf. You can actually literally have a vase on it, and it's balanced, so as you pull it down, everything stays on it, and it adds a support. You can see it on the left there. So let's go through the 3 principles of life editing. First of all, you need to edit ruthlessly. And so you need to deal with your inner pack rat. You need to clear the arteries of your life. And this is not always an easy thing for people. So that shirt that I've been carrying around for 3 years that I haven't worn once, it's time for me to let it go, and it's time for me to get it to someone who will actually use that. We need to think about how many and how big we need things to actually be. Most of us probably don't need a big knife block with about 18 different knives. 3 really nice knives may do the trick. And so you want to apply that general concept to everything that you have. This is coming and not here yet, but I swear it's the future, and that we'll see things like product libraries. Imagine living in a building, and here are a bunch of things that it would be nice to have access to, but not have to own and maintain and store and take up space. So it might be a karaoke machine, a stand-up paddleboard, a ladder, a drill, a set of party glasses, tools, a big stock pot, a cooler. These are all things you don't use very often, but you'd like to be able to use when you need them. So I think that's the kind of thing we're going to try to move from ownership to access. You also want to right-size your stuff. So that means you want stuff that's designed for how it's used the vast majority of the time. A lot of the stuff that we get is designed for this really rare occasion, and by doing that, we cause a lot of waste. So for example, why have a 5 or 6 burner stove when you rarely ever even use 3? So in our case, we use a set of plug-in induction burners. We can store a bunch of them in a drawer. You just pull out however many you need. Size-wise, so here's that Goliath table that's in the space. So it goes from 15 inches to 115. And we want stuff that nests and stacks and folds. So Joseph makes great stuff. And here is a really fun video. 1 chair, 2 chairs, and 3 chairs. Pretty magical, huh? Okay, finally, life edited principles. Number 3, want to go multifunctional. So you need to get double duty or triple duty from both the things that you own and the spaces that you inhabit. And so here's a great example. You don't eat when you sleep. You don't sleep when you eat. And so having something that occupies that same space makes sense. So here on the left, you have the dining room table. 2 fingers, you pull it down, and the dining room table literally folds away automatically underneath the bed for sleeping. That's another resource furniture piece. Or here's why have a dish rack and a cupboard for your dishes when you can just have one? So these guys just integrated, allows dishes can dry within the cupboard. So you just have, so it saves you time and saves you space. So I think that's the kind of multifunctionality that we need. So how can you apply this to business? Well, first of all, you always got a bunch of initiatives in your business. Well, they say that if you have more than 3 priorities, you have no priorities. And that's, I think, really important. If you've got initiatives A, B, and C, all the time you spend on B and C is time you're not spent on A. And so that singular focus is really important. And in the same way that editing down your life is really tricky because often it's good stuff. You may have a bunch of great initiatives. They all really feel right. But the reality is that whatever time you spend on one, you're not spending on another. And you really want to spend less but better. You want to focus on the ones that really matter. Products. So product lines can often bloat. And yes, consumers want options, but also numerous studies show that when you give people too many options, they end up getting paralyzed. And so if you can reduce your product lines or your number of features in software or et cetera, that allows you to really focus on those. And specifically in the product world, that'll get your volume up and help get your pricing down. So you really want to, and also allow you to do more specific marketing and communications directed to those things. So you want to think less but better. Finally, core competencies. You want to know what your business does really well. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. And so if you can sort of focus on the stuff that you're really good at and then outsource the rest, that allows you to have more depth and more experience and expertise in that area. And also, and when the times get tough, you don't have a lot of full-time staff. It allows your company to be potentially smaller. So really understanding sort of what your company should do and what it shouldn't is a good thing to do. So how might we apply this personally? Let me ask you a couple questions. Is a good way to be present with your friends and family to check your email every 10 minutes? Is a good way to get stuff done to change tasks every 3 minutes? So we live, or many of us live in a bit of a state of constant alarm. If you imagine someone was poking you every couple minutes, or an alarm was going off every couple minutes, it's a fairly stressful experience. So I want to ask you sort of how different is that from your phone buzzing or ringing your email dinging, your Skype bonging. Like, we have these alarms all the time. And I think the key question is, for most of us, how quickly do we really need to respond? And some of us have jobs where you do have to respond very quickly. Most of us, I would argue, can get at least a few hours, if not a half day, if not a day. And by slowing it down, it may allow you to get better work done. So who's the boss, you or your email? Often it can feel like you're just trying to keep up with this stuff. Email is generally someone else's agenda. And so if you're working on your agenda, it can be not a good way to do. So I really suggest, I'm amazed that people ever leave notifications on, period, but I'd say, like, cut that stuff off entirely and figure out what the minimum times you can check email. Could you just do it in the morning, after lunch, at the end of work? Is it possible that you could just not do it at all on the weekends? Email tends to reproduce, so if you want less of it, you want to send less of it, and you want to respond slower. So even if you're going to take a night to really catch up on email, don't send it that night. Send it, make sure it sends later on so you can slow the whole thing down. Mobile phone. Put it on vibrate. Or radical idea, maybe turn the ringer off for parts of the day. Try to move to one phone so you don't have all sorts of different phones coming. Think about using Google Voice or another free transcription service so you never have to go through that stupid dialing into your voicemail system. You can just read them in email quicker and rarely have to listen to them. Love your friends, your family, your coworkers. Why text Julie when you're with Fred and then text Fred while you're with Julie? So I really think about no phone during meals, and really, when you're spending time with people, try to be present. Especially kids. I think it's an easy trap to fall into. But if you're on your phone, you're not truly with your kids, and they know the difference. Instant messaging, minimize the number of contacts. Maybe you set your only office hours, turn it off, but that's a pure distraction of all the time, so I would really think about that. Make a daily plan. So I have a relative, really a successful, respected guy who lived to 100, and he knew every single day that he had one thing that he would get done no matter what. Do that 365 days a year, and you're moving the ball forward and helping yourself not get distracted. Stephen Covey wrote a lot of cheesy books, but this analogy I thought was pretty great. He talks about if you have a container and you have big rocks, little rocks, and sand, if you put some sand in first, then the little rocks, then the big rocks, you can't get much in the container. Whereas if you put big rocks in first, then the little rocks, and then the sand, they sort of fills in the cracks, and so you're able to put more. The analogy being, put the big rocks in your life first. Make that daily plan. Put the important stuff first. Nicholas Nassim Taleb, who wrote The Black Swan and Fooled by Randomness, talks a bunch about how news is mostly noise, and I really agree. And I think it can take up a lot of our time. It tends to be depressing and stressful, and I don't think you need it. So consider a media diet. Dip in here and there, but read the stuff that's about the bigger ideas, the summaries, the longer articles, the books. Stay focused on the bigger picture, save yourself some time, reduce some stress. Smartphones and tablets have really, in a way, taken away in-between time. So waiting in a line, taking a taxi, at the doctor's office, there are all these in-between times. And before we had these, we would actually be doing other things. Now we're trying to be productive, and so we're focused, and we have like a immediate tick to go for your phone. And I want to say that I think that non-productive time is actually valuable. This is a time where you check in with yourself, ask yourself how you're doing. You may chat with people around you. You might notice a person with a nice smile, a beautiful building, the smell of espresso coming out of that corner cafe. I'd like to argue that these times are actually important for us, that they recharge us, they give us a break, they allow us to get perspective on our lives. So I'd encourage you to try to work on the tick. So time is precious. We want to take time to be conscious. We want to design our own lives. We want to do things with consciousness. You want to understand yourself. You want to set parameters around your life so you can get the stuff done that matters, reduce your stress and reduce your distraction so you can focus on having better relationships. We want to apply less but better to home and to your work. So done right, less truly can be more. You're going to save some money, have a smaller footprint, and done right, you're going to have a little more ease, a little more time, a little more peace in your life. Home, work, personal life, it's your life. Edited. If you like what I've had to say, please visit lifeedited.com and get on our newsletter. Just send a newsletter, send an email to getnewsletter@lifeedited.com. Thank you.